oh, sorry, I just wanted to get this for, a viral video that's gonna come out. If you're thinking what I'm thinking, welcome to a review about Talk to Me, okay? Talk to Me is a movie that I literally had zero expectations about, okay? I saw one trailer when I went to go see a different horror movie that I have no need to talk about. I'm talking about Boogeyman, by the way. And I saw nothing about it leading up to it. I was able to see it a day early thanks to C2E2 and Repop and A24. Shout out to them, by the way. But literally zero expectations. When I saw the trailer originally, I was like, this could be interesting. But again, when it comes to scary movies, I end up having the same kind of vibe where it's like, it might be good, it might not be good, it might be very mid. I don't know. But I never go in being like, this is going to be a great movie. And let me tell you, I walked out of Talk to Me thoroughly surprised, okay? Thoroughly surprised. I was like, this was actually really good, okay? And let me tell you, the more that I looked into it and the more that I kind of sat with the movie, I was thoroughly impressed. So here is my non-spoiler review of Talk to Me. And then we're going to do a little section at the end with some spoilers for anyone who has been able to see the movie already. So I hope you enjoy. Every horror movie has a section where the characters, so they go and find lore, background information, ways to hurt the demon or the ghost or whatever's haunting them at the time. Okay? This is the research section of the Talk to Me review, because the background stuff that I found about this film was actually really cool and interesting, so I wanted to share that with you guys before we talk about the movie itself. Okay, so this movie is directed by Danny and Michael Philippou, who is a YouTube brother combo out of Australia who just make skits and films like this on YouTube, but this was their first feature film, and they submitted to Sundance, and they got in, okay? They have a vlog up on their channel talking about the Sundance experience as well, which is super cool, and how it went to Sundance, it got picked up by A24, and now it's being shared across 2,000 screens in America, which is insane. That's a YouTuber's dream, to make it to Sundance, to get the movie picked up, and for it to be shown everywhere, okay? This was so cool. They also talked about how they wanted to make the movie with a big budget, but when they went to studios, they had a lot of notes and things that they weren't happy with, and they wanted to just kind of make it themselves to avoid all of those issues, which it turned out pretty good for them, because the movie, surprisingly very good. The trailers, I don't think did it justice, because I went in and I was like, this looks like it could be alright, and I was thoroughly impressed. So now that I've given you a little bit of the background of this, now we can talk about the movie. So I was in high school, and I went to this party, and some friend of a friend showed up with this hand, and then I communed with it, and let a ghost in, and while I was letting the ghost in, I had this euphoric high, but while I was doing that, my friends were recording, and the ghost was telling them to run, 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 and I was like, bro, I watched the videos back, and it was insane. That was really weird. Be honest, that didn't actually happen to me. But welcome to the plot of Talk to Me, because that's basically the plot, okay? So this movie follows 4 main characters. Mia, who is struggling with the remembrance of her mom who died 2 years ago. Her best friend Jade, who just kind of wants to fit in and hang out with her boyfriend Daniel. Daniel's kind of weird, but that's a different story. And then we have Riley, who is Jade's younger brother, who really just wants to fit in and is really close with Mia, because Mia's kind of adopted Jade's family as her own, as she's struggling to deal with her mom's passing. So those are our 4 main characters, and like I said, it is her mom's remembrance. So on this day, she's like, we've been seeing these videos, let's just go see if it's real, okay? Let's just go and find out for ourselves. So they go to this party, and they quickly find out that this is real. You can commune with the ghost, talk to it for 90 seconds, have this euphoric high, and then the hand comes out, and every time they do it, there's a different ghost. So every time they do it, it's a different experience. So they're not getting the same ghost more than once. The entire time that this is happening, everyone else in the room is like, yeah, you got that? Oh, he opened the door, yo, that's gonna be so good on YouTube. That's the entire room. Outside of the people counting and the person experiencing it, everyone's just, they're eating this up. And it really shows you that this is exactly what teenagers would be doing if they found a random hand. They also don't know where the hand came from. It got passed from a friend to a friend. They don't know if it's from like a fortune teller or if it's real or not. They just know that you can commune with it if you hold it. And that's another thing. They don't give you a lot of background on the hand. They never go into the background of the hand. It's just like, yeah, we got it from this guy, and like I've heard it's this, but I've heard it's that, so I don't know, but like it's fun. And they just keep doing it and doing it. And like a lot of teenagers, they're not worried about the consequences because nothing bad's happened yet. Nothing bad has happened. Everyone has had a good experience. Everyone wants to keep doing it until something goes a little haywire. And the back half, when real stuff starts kicking off, they don't know how to close the door. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know why this is happening. They can't tell if the ghosts are trustworthy or not and saying on who they actually are. And Mia has started seeing stuff without having to commune with the hand. So she's freaked out. She's trying to figure out what's going to happen. And it's just the build up to that and trying to figure out where this is going to go. So that's kind of like the entire story in vague details without going into spoilers. We'll talk a little bit of spoilers towards the end, which will be clearly marked, so don't worry. But the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of the plot themes and like kind of the overall kind of outside of the plot, what goes on in this film. I would like to get off my chest that if I was 18 and saw my friends communing with the dead, I'm freaking out of there. No, thank you. I've seen enough horror movies in my life to know that I'm dying first. I'm getting haunted first. I'm out of there. No, thank you. That's a no-go for me. But this movie makes you believe that this is what these kids would be doing. Okay, this is exactly what these kids would be doing. The beginning, the prologue of the movie, it really takes its time to show you and make you believe that these characters are doing exactly this for all of these reasons. It also gives you subtle foreshadowing of things that happen in the beginning that are going to pay off at the end. It shows character dynamics. It shows the relationships, the friendships, all of these dynamics. And then once stuff starts kicking off, it is a race. It is a race to the end. It does not let off until the movie is over. So you get this like really slow pacing that doesn't feel like 90 minutes. It makes you feel like you've cared about these characters for a lot longer. And then once it hits a point, you're off to the races. You're go, 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 go until the end. And it does not let up, which is really smart because it builds this tension even more, because by the end you're like, oh, I can't watch this again. Like, I'm stressed. Like, I was so stressed during parts of this because it gave such a very strong sense of tension, and you were just waiting for something to happen, and you're like, nothing was safe. There was not a moment in this film where you thought it was safe, and then at the end you like let out a breath and you're like, oh, wow. This also shows a lot of really interesting parallels between like kids going to parties and doing drugs with exactly kids going to parties and communing with the dead. They're wanting to chase this high. They're wanting to have fun and hang out with their friends and do everything. And then something really tragic happens and they have to deal with the consequences. And they don't know how to deal with the consequences because they're kids and they were hanging out wanting to have fun. And now they're thrown into this like turmoil of something tragic happening. And that's exactly how this movie goes. They're thrown into the turmoil and they have to deal with ghosts and what's going to happen to them and where they're going to go after this and how to close the door and all this stuff. And it's so smart, and by the end you've realized what they've done and what you saw at the beginning and how it's paying off now, and you're just like, I never thought about that. This movie also gives you information about like what's going on without giving you a lot of information. There's a couple of like one-liners that are like kind of thrown that gives the viewer information and kind of gives them information, but it doesn't like, it's not like they're throwing them into a whole new place and they're like, okay, so we read about the ghost and this is what's gonna happen. It's like, oh, I heard this. And they're like, oh, okay. and that kind of pays off at the end. Or it's they go to the source, and the source kind of gives them like very little information, but it's never a blatant like, this is what the ghost, and this is what's gonna happen, and this is how you handle it. This is just like a, oh yeah, man, it's kind of messed up. Like, why would you guys do that? Like, that's kind of insane. And it's just, it's very smartly done to give you information and kind of what's gonna happen without blatantly giving it to you. And that's something that, like, I've seen a lot in horror movies. Like I said, there's a research section in a lot of films where they go and they read up about the ghost, and like they're on the internet, or they're reading books, or they're going to someone and they're like, and someone's giving them all this information. This movie never does that. This movie gives you information without giving you information at the same time, if that makes sense. And it's just so smart, and it's so clever. The cinematography also is really beautiful. They do these really interesting, like, over-the-shoulder shots where you can kind of see the ghost over Mia's shoulder, but not really. Anytime that they commune with the ghost, they flip their head back, and the camera follows them and goes to this new angle. And it's just, everything's so smart. And there's moments of comedy and levity, too, where you're like, yo, that's kind of messed up, but that's really funny. And it's just, it gives you everything that you want. You get a good laugh. You get a good scare. You get a really good scare. And it doesn't rely on those jump scares either. It gives you a realistic scare where I jumped and I was like, oh, because it's not a scare for the viewer. It's a scare for the characters in the movie. So it wasn't a jump scare that went, ha! It was a jump scare that was, it was building this tension, and they were finding something out, and then it was an extreme act of violence, and you go, ooh. Because you know how some movies, they tee you up for like a jump scare where they have opened a cabinet, and you're like, oh, something's going to be behind that cabinet door when they close it, and there's nothing, and then all of a sudden there's a bang, and you get scared like that. It was never that. It was always something's happening, and a tension's building, and then an extreme act of violence. And you're like, oh, ooh. And it was just, it was so smart because you're not used to seeing that a lot of the times, because you're used to the first one where they tee you up and then they don't get you, and then they get you a few moments later. So it was just an interesting take on horror, and it did not rely on those jump scares like a lot of scary movies. So that's kind of like my thoughts and like kind of what I see through the film. So let's talk a little bit about spoilers. If you want to avoid spoilers, you can skip this next little section here, and then I'll talk about my overall feelings at the very end. I just want to take a few minutes to talk about the ending of the film and all of the foreshadowing that kind of seemed mundane, and how it pays off in the end. Because at the end, when Mia's about to like throw Riley into traffic, and you're like, is she gonna really do it? I genuinely thought she was just gonna do it, because I was like, she learned that she had to do it from the kangaroo. Not that she wasn't going to be able to do it, but she watched the kangaroo, and she mentioned it again to Jade later on that night, and she's like, I thought she was like, yes, I'm strong enough to do it for the better good now, because I know Riley will be safe after this. When she throws into traffic and you're not sure what happened, and you see her get up again, you're like, there's no way she survived that, right? Like, there's no way. To be fair, her dad did survive a scissors to the neck that I definitely thought he was gonna die from, and watching her like get up and walk through the hospital and then relive the nightmare that she talked about for a brief moment with Riley towards the beginning of the film, and not being able to see her reflection, and trying to talk to everyone, and feeling this not being existing feeling that is exactly what her nightmare is. And seeing the cycle continue when she goes and talks to another group of people who have somehow got the hand, and you see that this is just going to be a vicious cycle that continues, and more people are going to die, and it's just this ever-ending cycle. As tragic as the ending is, it's such a neat bow to wrap up the entire story, because that's the worst thing in movies, when you get to the end, you're like, oh, like that's it? Like that's how this ends? It was such a smart and like neat way to finish it, that you believe that that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to keep getting passed along, exactly like The Ring does. Like, it gave me Ring vibes, and I was like, this makes sense. Like, I fully believe this. I fully understand that this is just going to continue, and then it's over, and you're like, yeah, I'm satisfied with that. As like relieved as I was that it was over, I was like, I believe that ending. I believe that ending. So that concludes the spoiler section of this. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about that because I was really just kind of sitting with me and I wanted to share that with you guys. But now let's move on to the most important question and kind of my overall thoughts of the film before we wrap this up. The most important question you can ask yourself after seeing a movie is, will I watch this again? And will I recommend it to my friends? I have been recommending everyone go see this movie. It is a good time. It's out now. Take your friends, make a night of it, and you guys will be thoroughly surprised and impressed and have a great time. This movie's fun. This movie's scary. It's such a fun take on horror that I think you'll enjoy it. But will I watch it again? I'm not sure. It's one of those movies where it's like, I could be one and done. Like, I've seen it. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I want to go through that again because it's kind of gross. It's not as gross as Evil Dead Rise, but it has really gross moments and you're like, I don't know if I can live that again because it stressed me out. It stressed me out. As well, I wanted to mention that we are getting close to 150 subscribers on YouTube, and I have made it a goal that if we hit 150 subscribers, I will be watching Terrifier because I've literally had no intention of watching that movie, but I will watch it for this channel and record myself watching it so I can give you guys the gross moments where I'm like, so you guys can see my true reactions when I'm watching a movie because it's kind of funny sometimes. But yeah, so if you like this video, make sure you like it, comment what movies you guys like to see, what you thought about the film, and subscribe so you guys can watch me watch Terrifier in the worst way possible. But until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, have a wonderful weekend. I love you guys. Bye!